Hello and welcome to the State of the Rivalry podcast. I'm Casey Bartley, Boiler Upload. Here with me, as always, Dylan Sinn of the Journal Gazette. Dylan, how are we doing today on this fine Easter afternoon?
I'm good. I'm good. Thanks for coming on with me, Casey. This is going to be a lot of fun, and it is Easter. Yes. Happy end of Lent to you.
Yep. Passover to Portal Talk, something like that. So,
There you go.
am I getting the words right?
You're on the right track.
Perfect.
We're doing it.
Yep, we will be discussing IU and Purdue's portal news additions. Exciting for one school rebuilding an entire roster. For another, Purdue's ascension towards the top of all of college basketball. As I go real blurry here, ah, whatever. Um, so Dylan, we'll start off with IU, who has by far had the busiest of portal seasons for pretty much any college basketball team. It obviously starts with a new coaching hire. Just what have been your first impressions of the new regime down in Bloomington?
Yeah, I've been relatively impressed so far. I think they are kind of like the Louisville of this offseason, where they basically had nobody on the roster a couple days after the coach took over, and they've had to rebuild the entire roster from scratch. There were a couple of false starts where they went after Josh Dixon, didn't get him. They went after Ryan Conwell and didn't get him. But I think the good news for IU is it seems like they had backup plans for both of those guys, and they went out and got good players at those positions. And so they are in decent shape right now. They have 6 portal additions, 7 players on the roster, and a potential 8th, depending on the outcome of Luke Goody's NCAA waiver request. We have still not heard anything official about that. But as of right now, the broad strokes is that this is kind of the anti-IU team of the last few years. There are a lot of perimeter guys who can shoot the basketball. There's a lot of ball handling. There is no size whatsoever as of yet. It is the oops, all perimeter scoring Indiana basketball edition. So they are still looking for a big guy. They are still looking for some rim protection, which they don't have basically any of yet. And so that will probably be the next phase here, and then they'll try to fill out the bench with quality pieces. But that is the situation right now.
Yeah, it's been a. If you could say that IU's missed on anything in the last, 8 years of coaching hire, it's just a coach that the lack of idealizing what a proper rotation looks like. Because like you can't argue that there hasn't been talent. Like the IU teams, especially under Mike Woodson, plenty of NBA talent, plenty of all Big Ten caliber guys, plenty of high recruiting ranks. I mean, last year was probably the best example of Umar Ballo and Malik Renew are your two most talented players, and there was no real great lineup with them both on the floor at the same time. It seemed like IU's best basketball for most of the season was with one of them on the bench and one of them playing, and that's not ideal. And then just lack of shooting, right? Like, so who are the names? Obviously, DeVries brings in his own kid. Is it DeVries, right?
It is DeVries, yes.
DeVries, not DeVry University.
It is not. No, people are going to get that wrong early in the
Yep.
season on TV. It is Darren, not Darian,
Yeah,
Darren
that's right.
DeVries. That's right. Yes, it looks like Darian. It is not. It's Darren.
That is obnoxious. Darren, spelled Darian. I don't know why it's Darren. It's not Darren. Under no, you want to go funny and make it like Darian? Sure, like rhymes with Funyun, but Darren out of that is wild. His son comes. Is his son the star? Is that what everything is focused around here?
It seems like his son is going to be the highest usage guy, would be my guess. He is the guy who is going to both score and facilitate for them. Basically, everyone else on the roster can either score or facilitate, and so you're going to do one or the other. Tucker DeVries, 6'7", final year of eligibility, 2-time All Missouri Valley Conference Player of the Year. he is going to be kind of your wing scorer and also a really good facilitator off of the wing. And so that'll be his role. He shot 47% from three last year, which is obviously a huge deal for an Indiana team that's been starved for really good shooting, as you said. And that's kind of, I think the ball will go into his hands on most possessions, and he'll be running the show to some extent. But he is not the only guy that can do either of those things. So I do think it's one of those things where there's redundancy on this team already, and that's what we're seeing. I think that was kind of, to your point, something that's been missing the last couple of years, or last couple of coaching regimes, is like they had one scorer, they had one big guy who could really play. They had one or two guys who could rebound. There wasn't a lot of redundancy in attributes. I think this team already has some of that, and I think that's going to make it a little bit more complete of a unit next year.
Was there any drama with anyone staying? Or was it pretty much just as soon as the regime changed, it was like everyone was going to go?
It kind of seemed like basically everyone was going to go. The only real drama has been that Harun Zerno, the European, Bosnian, I believe he is, they had him coming in the freshman class as a 21-year-old freshman, and he decommitted the day that DeVries was hired, or the day after. I think it was the day of. And he apparently, there was a story in the Indiana Daily Student, shout out student newspapers, last week, that basically he decommitted, and then he basically left the door open to coming back to Indiana. He just wanted to look around, basically. And once he decommitted, he and his people have reached out to DeVries a couple of times, have reached out to Indiana's people a couple of times, and have not heard back. Basically, it just kind of, well, there's been no response. And from what I understand, that's actually not all that uncommon, but they did say it explicitly in the student newspaper. So now he is apparently a recruiting target of Kentucky's. So we'll see whether that, if he ends up at Kentucky, it would be very funny. IU plays Kentucky in December. We'll probably talk in a second about another reason that game will be interesting. But that is kind of the only drama that has come out of any of the people leaving.
I mean, we are in an era of ghosting. That's how we live our love lives. That's how the young kids do it. DeVries is on the younger side of coaching, right? Under 40.
He's 49 actually. He was
young.
He does. He looks good. He was an assistant coach at Creighton for 18 years.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, under Altman and then under McDermott, and then he was the head coach at Drake for 6 years and West Virginia for 1. So he's been in this game for a long time. He played at Northern Iowa in the 90s, like mid 90s. So okay. He's not quite as young as you would think from his resume, but he looks good, as you said. So
yeah, 36 would be young to have a senior son. Now that I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, you mentioned Kentucky. Obviously, one of the additions of IU, I believe it was a battle between IU and Kentucky.
Yes.
You want to go ahead and tell us about him and all the what you expect from that talent ad?
Sure. Yeah. That's kind of the other, outside of Tucker DeVries, that's the big kind of high level transfer recruit ad that IU has made, is Lamar Wilkerson, the shooting guard. He was down to 4 with Kentucky, IU, Auburn, and Ole Miss, and then he went on his visits to IU and Kentucky on back-to-back days last weekend, and he canceled the other 2. So it ended up coming down to IU versus Kentucky, kind of head-to-head. And Kentucky thought they were going to get him. There was a lot of like, well, this seems like a pretty done deal. They took him to the racetrack in Lexington, Keeneland, which in retrospect is a pretty funny thing to do, but that's what they did. And he ended up committing to IU, one of the best shooting guards out of the transfer portal from Sam Houston State. And IU does play in Lexington this year. That is where that game is being played. So that should be an interesting return for him. But he is a terrific player. He is a 3-level scorer. He shoots the hell out of the basketball. 43% from 3, basically 6% better than anyone else in the entire conference that he played in. But he is a guy who scores the basketball. He is familiar with IU, I assume that this is part of the reason that IU got in on his recruitment in the first place, was DeVries was watching IU games back last year and saw him play at Assembly Hall last season for Sam Houston
Ah,
State. He had 18 points against IU in that game, and watching that back against a defense that was at least pretty good most of the season. He's a shot maker, just kind of the pure shooting guard. I'm going to get you buckets mold. And I think that that is a kind of a type of guy that Indiana has missed the last couple of years. They've had big scoring, they've had some wing scoring with Mbako, but they have not really had a get on my back, I'm going to get you a bucket guy. And that is what he brings. And I think him and DeVries playing next to each other will give both of them much better looks than either of them playing alone. So I do think that if you're going to have those two at the wing, you're going to score some points. I think that that's what I was looking for.
yeah. The closest thing is probably Jalen Hood Shafino, who against Purdue was great.
Yeah.
Little inconsistent, true freshman, but definitely a shot maker.
Yeah.
Um, between what DeVries has done in his past and the kind of guys he's getting, what are you expecting stylistically from IU this season? Is it going to be Mike Woodson? There were plenty of flaws in his system. One thing he did well, though, was he was very much NBA mindset. Is there a weakness out there or something they can't defend? We're going to keep doing it. It's kind of why IU had success against Purdue with Woodson is Painter is very rigid in the way that we have our principles. So that you kind of know there are going to be openings in certain ways. And a lot of the times you live with that because most teams aren't disciplined enough to consistently take advantage of it because you just get bored spamming the same thing over and over again. I use teams with Woodson, I did think do a pretty good job of this is working. We're not going to get off of it. What can we expect from DeVries' just overall mindset and how he's going to get his team to play?
Yeah, I think that that's first of all that's a good summation of what worked for Woodson. And I do think with DeVries, I think the idea is going to be a lot of 4 out, 1 in. I think that's the plan. I don't think you'll see a lot of two big lineups. Now we'll get to Reed Bailey and what they're going to do with him because I'm still not sure. I've heard conflicting things. But it is one of those things where I think they're going to try to move the ball. Obviously, they're going to try to create from the perimeter more than IU has in the last couple of years. I think that's why all the shooting. They have a couple of guys they could play at point guard. I think that I think it is going to be one of those things where for the first season, especially because they have some talent, but it's still unclear exactly how talented they're going to be. The starting five, I think, is going to be talented, but it's a question of how the bench guys you can get at this point. But I do think they're going to hang their hat on just being we're going to be the tryhards. I think that that is what he wants to be in this first year. That's kind of what West Virginia was last year. That's what Drake was. And that's what Scott Dolson said when he hired him was he saw DeVries teams play twice, once with Drake in the NCAA tournament 2 years ago, and once in the Bahamas with West Virginia this past year. And basically both times he came away thinking like not even knowing that I was going to need a coach, but thinking these teams play really darn hard. It's noticeable even among the elite teams in college basketball. And I think that that is kind of going to be at least this first year before you can get into anything stylistically. We are going to be the try hard team. We are going to get after you, and you are not going to want to play us. And so I think that that is going to be at least the plan to start off with. And then we'll see how he fills in the roster around that. But I do think that that is kind of going to be the core of what he wants to do.
Playing hard is like generally when you think of coaches that make the rise from, small schools, they are teams that play frenetic. They are teams that buy in. Certainly, IU could have used a little bit more of that the last few seasons. I'm looking at you, Umar Ballo. Are, but they are going to need some help. And as someone, we watched an entire Purdue team kind of be plagued by a lack of rim protection for a whole season with more skill than IU has currently. It's a treacherous road to play. I don't care how hard you play if you don't have someone on the back line. Are there impact bigs left that IU is targeting that you're looking at like this could kind of make or break this first season?
So to me, I think yes, because and we'll get into it with Bailey now. Is that
Wilberg is gone.
yeah, Wilberg is
He's
gone.
gone.
Wichita,
Wichita State,
I
congrats.
I think he's going to be really good at Wichita State. I think that is kind of the level that he should be at, and he is going to be good there. But so IU, the big that they have on their team right now is the Davidson transfer, Reed Bailey, who was terrific at Davidson. Really good interior scorer. Can step out and shoot the three a little bit, but that's not really his game. He shot like 40%, but on 30 attempts or something like that. And so I think that the question then you have is, do you want to play him at 4, or do you want to play him at 5 and put Tucker at 4? I think that is going to be what Indiana has to answer here in the next couple of weeks as they try to round out their roster. And there are some bigs that they've been in on, none that I've seen where it's like, okay, we're down to the final 4 here, and we're really targeting this guy. And I've heard that they want to play him at the 5. I don't know how accurate that is.
Reed Bailey?
Yes, I would be concerned about that because that's a super.
Not a great rebounder.
He's not a great rebounder. He's not a great rim protector. That is like the other teams shot very very well at the rim against him, and so I would be concerned about it because you can put a super skilled team on the court with Bailey out there because that allows you to play, and we can talk about this in a second. That allows you to play Connor Enright and Tatum Connerway together in the front court or in the back court. And so that would be super skilled. You have a ton of shooting. You have a ton of perimeter creation ability. But man, on defense, that would be rough. It'd be really rough. Because the thing with Lamar Wilkerson is that the knock on him is that he is not the best perimeter defender. And he's kind of acknowledged that, where that's kind of a focus for him this offseason is getting better at it. And I think he will, but it would be better if you could have a rim protector out there to help him out a little bit. And so I think that you would rather play Bailey at the 4, but then you get back into the same problem you had the last couple of years of Bailey can shoot, but he's not a shooting big, if that makes sense. And so
17 of 41 from 3 last year.
Yeah, it's not
41%, not a crazy amount.
Exactly. And so you can maybe you say that that scales up and he can be a 36 or 35% shooter on a decent number of attempts and he can be the stretch 4. I don't know. And so we'll see. I think they probably need a big, but there has not been anything where it's like, oh, this is a guy that we're really targeting that is going to be our big of next season. So we'll see. That's kind of the remaining question for me is, do you play him at 5 and sacrifice a lot of rim protection ability, or do you play him at 4 and sacrifice some playmaking ability from the perimeter? And I think that's going to be the question that gets answered here probably in the next week or so.
Yeah, I think we're not on Purdue yet, but it's going to be fascinating to see how much just having because Oscar Clough for Purdue, who they added, is not like a great rim protector, but he's an elite rebounder. And the more I go over Purdue's season last year and rewatching the games, it wasn't really so much about having a big at the rim. It was they just couldn't put away possessions because they didn't have someone like Zach Edey was as good as it gets as just, I own this area near the rim. So if they miss, it's our ball. Purdue didn't have that. IU right now, like Reed Bailey's defensive rebounding percentage is 16.2.
Yeah.
That's like a decent guard rebounder.
Yeah.
Just number wise.
He's Braden Smith out there.
Yeah. Yeah. And in general, rebounding is one of the more consistent through levels as you go from, low D1 to high D1, even from college to NBA. It's kind of just how you play. Like, are you a rebounder or not? And I get wanting to play hard. Like, IU can do that. Like, that helps a little. But, like, if you don't have a guy in there that can just end possessions and eat balls and go get it, like, it makes everything substantially more difficult. So you definitely need someone. Like, IU needs a big body. In a Big Ten that's like not getting smaller.
No, I was thinking about this the other day. You know who would be really good for this IU, borderline
Oscar
perfect.
Clough.
Well, Oscar Clough, yes, but borderline perfect for this IU team would be Khalil Ware. He would be the missing piece for this team because he can step out a little bit, but also he was just erasing every other shot going to the rim and was a really good rebounder. And it's one of those things where, all right, Mike Woodson, can you help us out here one last ride? Who do you have in your big fella arsenal that
Come
you
back from the NBA?
Yeah, that's right. Can you get for us? So I think that is so. When you ask like, what is this? What is IU want to do stylistically? I think that it's still a little bit unclear, and we're not going to know until they either add a big man or don't. Add a they will add a big man, to be clear, but it's a question of whether they add like a high level one that has 1 year of eligibility left and is going to be the big man for next season, or whether it's like, oh, we're going to get a freshman or a couple of younger guys who are projects and who aren't going to help us as much next season.
Yeah, that probably touches a little bit on bigger picture, like what are the expectations and what should they be? Like, what is this season going to be really about results, or is it going to be not vibe, but like how important is it for IU fans, athletic department players to see a basketball mind at work?
Yeah.
Because as much as these things take time, I think that might be the biggest basketball lie. We've watched enough really good coaches turn things around right away.
Yeah. Here's my thing. I think that we talked about Louisville a little bit earlier. Louisville and Kentucky ruined it for everyone this past year, where they brought in Michigan too. Like those guys, they had at least Michigan was able to return some of its guys from the previous year. Like Louisville and Kentucky, some of them. Like
what did Michigan return?
Cheddar was back.
No, sir. Awful. No. No.
They had a couple of
No.
guys on that. They had
An annoying bench player they brought back.
I know.
Cool.
I know, but so yeah, you're right. They have all those three guys. They had very little on the roster, and they turned those teams around immediately, right? And I think that IU is not that we're not. They're not saying Sweet 16 or bust next season because that's what Kentucky and Michigan did. No, but it is one of those things where you have high level NIL. You've demonstrated an ability to go get really good guys. So I think what IU is looking for is competence, right? Just quiet competence. Go out there and win 23 games. Play a style of basketball that you feel like can translate into more going forward. But what I will say is that Darren DeVries is not looking at this as a building year. He's not saying on the like we're gonna go. The first year Tom Crean versus first year Pat Kelsey. He's closer to first year Pat Kelsey on the spectrum by a long margin because like most of the guys they've got, I think basically everyone they've gotten so far. I'm racking my brain here, and I apologize this wrong. Almost everyone has 1 year of eligibility left. So it's obviously Trent Sisley is on the roster, so that helps. But so far, the guys they've gotten are you are here for 1 year. Let's go make this a special one, right? And so they are not saying, hey, we're going to build this thing from the ground up. And if we win 10 games the first season, that's fine. That is not what they're doing. I think Darren DeVries knows the pressure to show at least some competence in year one is on, especially after what we talked about just a second ago with coaches at high level programs have shown an ability to do that, especially last year. You can rebuild a program in 1 year now. It's just, can you make it sustainable over the long term by doing that? And so that's going to be the challenge is, okay, now you have your foundation for next year's team. Can you go out and build a foundation for teams beyond that in the last 4 or 5 or 6 guys you get out of the portal going forward here? I think that is going to be kind of the next phase of this for IU.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. It touches a little bit like, can he just be a basketball coach? Is that possible at IU? Like, can you just work on your team and not worry about who the coach 8 years ago was, what Bob Knight would do, how the fans want to react? Like, does he have the freedom? And not even just freedom, because I think, like, you kind of got to put the onus, like, it seems a little bit like sometimes you build the the excuses in with yourself with having a bad first year
Mhm.
or making a misstep. Like all the if IU wants to play in the world that they play in, like you don't really get a whole bunch of, well, hold on, we'll get there. Because like that's kind of been the philosophy for 8 years and it hasn't worked.
Yeah. Like that, it was a running joke on IU Twitter in like 2018, 19. It was like, just wait until Archie gets his guys in
Right.
there.
Right.
We're like in year 2 of Mike Woodson. Just wait until Archie gets his guys in there. Like it's one of those things where, yeah, you're not going to get a ton of grace. But I do think DeVries is going to get at least a little bit more grace than the average IU coach because after 8 combined years of Archie and Mike Woodson. And you know me, I am a Mike Woodson defender, and I probably will be so going forward. But it is one of those things where a lot of the fan base was just done with him, was just
Right.
tired of it. They wanted it to be over, and so Darren DeVries being not Mike Woodson on the
Right.
sideline is going to get at least a little bit of grace here in year 1, especially with the fact that he had no one on his roster when he took over. And the reality of college basketball is now that that's not as big of an impediment as it used to be, but it's not nothing. And so I do think that if they go out and quote unquote only win 18, 19, 20 games in year 1 and either miss the tournament or go to the first 4, I think people are going to be disappointed, but it's not going to be, you're not going to see the rush to the barricades that you might have seen a couple of years ago, I think.
Tell me if this is a fair criticism, because with the court decisions upcoming, with the $25 million athletic budget that's in theory going to hit next year and be kind of the salary for teams.
Yeah.
This was supposed to be the last year of the Wild Wild West, right? Where you get
Yeah.
both that money and any of the money you can raise.
Right.
And that's supposed to be IU's one of its biggest advantages, right?
Mm-hmm.
Certainly in the circles geographically around it, when you're talking about advantage over Purdue, when you're talking about some other Big Ten teams. Should this offseason not have looked a little more spectacular so far if money is no object with IU, which is seems to be the rhetoric for IU fans and people who look at the program as this is an elite program. They have limitless pockets. Like, should there have been some more fireworks? And maybe they're coming still, but
Yeah.
like, they're solid players. They're good players, but I don't think you look at what he has now and you're like, oh, this team's going to be for sure.
Yeah. It's a question to me of because you needed so many guys out of the
Mm,
portal, even for a team with unlimited, quote unquote, unlimited money.
right.
They had to spread it around, right? I think it's the Matt Norlander article that came out a couple days ago where it was like, all right, here are the tiers of college basketball, and here's who has what money. IU is top 10 in the country in how much money they have to spend. And I think that, I mean, Tucker DeVries costs a lot of money, right? Now, maybe not quite as much. Maybe he's taking a quote
Mm-hmm.
unquote hometown discount. Lamar Wilkerson costs a lot of money. Beating out Kentucky head to head in a recruiting battle, that costs money, right? Tate and Conaway, I'm sure, cost a fair amount of money. Reed Bailey cost a fair amount of money. So you're spreading this around, and then you're buying out Mike Woodson. You're buying out. They paid. I think it was Zach Oster from the Indy Star that reported this. They paid the biggest buyout in college basketball history to get Darren DeVries away from West Virginia. That was about 6 million or so when you factor in interest and things like that. And that's part of the like Mick Cronin we talked about as a guy who they could have hired. His buyout was like 10, 12 million. So it would have been almost double the amount of the highest ever.
Right.
So in a way, it's kind of flown under the radar. They are flexing their financial muscle, but that's just kind of what that looks like right now. Is that they had to buy out one coach, buy out another coach, hire an entire assistant. We haven't talked about that yet. They've done a pretty good job of hiring a staff. Getting Kenny
Mm-hmm.
Johnson back from Georgetown is a huge deal. That is a big time get for them. But then they had to go out and build an entire roster. So there's a lot of money being poured into this program in the offseason, and we'll see whether that translates into immediate success. But the financial might is absolutely there.
Have we missed anything that you want to talk about right now that presses you about IU? There's so much with how much they've had to just like
Yes.
restock everything.
The one thing that we haven't super touched on that I want to touch on is that basically IU has found its Ace Baldwin which I am pretty excited about to watch. Tatum Connerway, the transfer from the transfer from Troy. He's the reigning Sun Belt Player of the Year. He is obviously a scorer and a facilitator, but he is also one of the best on-ball defenders in major college basketball last season.
Is that how you thought about Ace Bailey?
No, Ace Baldwin.
Okay.
Ace Baldwin.
Oh, Ace Baldwin. Okay.
Yes.
I was hearing all this through a lens of Ace Bailey, and I was like, what?
No, Ace Baldwin. They found their version of Ace Baldwin, a guy who can be the head of the snake on defense, who can facilitate on offense, who is just an absolute bulldog. He can't shoot. I think that is probably fine if you're going to put Wilkerson and DeVries and maybe Connor Enright next to him. I think that's probably fine because Ace Baldwin is not a great shooter either. And I think that they were able to do okay. But I am just fascinated, already fascinated to see him take on Braden Smith when they play against each other. I think that is going to be an absolute ball.
This is Anthony Leal again with you?
It's not Anthony Leal.
Yes, it is.
To be clear, I love watching Anthony Leal play basketball. But IU having like a head of the snake, I'm going to guard our best guy every single night. That is not, generally speaking, something they've had in the last couple of years, except for the end of the last season with Leal. But that is just a type of guy that Indiana has not typically had recently. And having one of those guys, just an absolute bulldog to set the tone out there, I think that is a really important piece for them. It's probably going to go under the radar because he isn't ranked quite as high. Mm-hmm. But he's a damn good player looking at his film, and I'm excited about him a lot.
The only thing I will caution is if IU doesn't provide a big man behind him, even if he's a great perimeter defender, there's only so much you can do.
Yes.
If you're by there and there's no backline, there's no switching options, there's no there's certainly a chance he has a great season, looks great, and they could still get carved up because he's just put in impossible situations, particularly when playing teams like Purdue that can throw big man and all the rolling and all the stuff. But okay, so Tatum Connerway, that's your guy. Like, you're marking him already. Like,
that is my, out of all the guys they've gotten in the portal this offseason so far, that is my guy. That is the guy that I am most excited to see just ball out next year for IU.
Okay. High assist player. Gotta like that. Almost 37% assist rate. A little high on the turnovers. But yeah, third best steal percentage last year. Little Ken Palm and Dylan Darling.
There you go. Look at that. I think that is one thing to note about IU is they have, from last season, 2 of the top 20 guys in the country in assist rate, I believe. Because they also got Connor Enright from DePaul, who is pretty high as well. So, again, that goes back
IU is not a... it was like Trey Galloway creates, or we're just going to do stuff.
Yeah. It was not great. But yeah, so I think that goes back to, if you play Bailey at the 5, you can get both of those guys on the court at the same time, Connerway and Enright. And I think that's a team that's going to score 90 points a game and maybe give up 95, but it's going to be a lot of fun.
I said Connerway is going to have to figure out how to guard a lot of centers because they are going to force a switch a lot if that's the case.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, so we will obviously touch back more on IU. If anything, IU should have more breaking news throughout the next few weeks anyway. Their roster is by no ways complete. I do kind of forget that Trent Sisley is there.
Yeah.
He was a target for so long in high school that once they don't commit to Purdue, they kind of disappear from me. Trent Sisley is really, really freaking good. It's interesting the way the roster's lined up, because it's not a defense that protects him in ways that he might need right now. Like he's a guy who needs a big boy center because you get the most out of him by playing the 4.
Yeah,
he's not Cooper Flagg, but that's kind of his style of play.
It's the mold. Yeah. So here's what I'll say is that there's a guy. His name is Leo Curtis. He is from. Oh boy, I'm drawing a blank now. He is from overseas, and he played high school basketball. I think Iceland. He's from Iceland.
He played Iceland.
Yeah, he's from he played high school basketball in Massachusetts, but he is from Iceland. He was originally committed to Arizona State, but his final 3 in January was IU, West Virginia, Arizona State. So he chose Arizona State, but now he's decommitted. And there is some obvious thought that IU would be a good landing spot for him because he's obviously familiar with IU and with DeVries. He's a 7'1" guy who is more of a project. So if we're talking more longer view here, in year 2, it's possible that you get him at center and Sicily at forward. And I think that would work really, really well because Curtis's thing is he is a stretch 5 where he's a good rebounder and good shot blocker, but he's also a really good 3-point shooter. And putting him and Sicily in the front court next to each other would be extremely intriguing to me. So if we're taking an extremely long view, extreme being 2 years, that is something that I could see being very interesting if he does end up committing to IU.
Yeah, because Sicily's ceiling really is Hummel with better like ball handling, like a more fluid Hummel. Like that's the ceiling. Like that's like all American Sicily if he turns out. Yeah. But like, there's not been many more impressive high school players in Indiana in the last few years than what Sicily does, and he does it at a position where he's an oversized wing, and that's a good cheat code on both ends of the floor usually.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're gonna put pretty reckless expectations, I think, on Omar Mayer here in a second. Saying Robbie Hummel, but Robbie Hummel, but better for Trent Sicily is going to be small potatoes compared to what we're saying about
Mayer. Ceiling. Okay, dream scenario. Scenario.
Fair enough.
All right, so that's enough IU talk for now. We will stay up to date. There will probably, I'd be shocked if there aren't 2 more pretty significant polls for IU in the next few weeks. Turning over to a team that looks to be pretty finite, pretty set in stone, pretty beautiful. Purdue Boilermakers, the now tied with Duke national champion favorites. Purdue made pretty quick work of the portal. Portal opened. Oscar Clough, number 1 portal player for some places. Yeah. Definitely number 1 big man. 6'11", 260, a lot of heft out of South Dakota State. Commits to Purdue right away. Seems to fill the obvious void at center where Purdue missed some rim protection and rebounding last year, along with the addition of Daniel Jacobson. And then things got real fun, Dylan. Do we want to? Let's talk Clough first before we get into fanfic. Just how perfect of, like, if you were going into a lab, you said what kind of body and player did Purdue need for sure on this team? Yeah, is it just Clough? Like you just say, Brent?
To me, yes. Matt Painter stood up in front of us at the last press conference of the season after they lost to Houston, and basically said, "We were not physical enough. That's my bad. We need to get more physical." And he went out and got one of the more physical players in the country last season. Oscar Clough, just watching his film, he is I like to call him like a space clearer under the basket. And I think that is kind of a type of guy that Purdue was missing both on offense and defense this year, quite frankly. Putting him if you put him in for Caleb. I like Caleb first. I like Caleb first. He was a very good player, and he did a lot for this.
Saw Caleb at the golfing range yesterday.
There you go. How's his swing?
I haven't got to see it yet. He was walking. I was walking away. He was walking too. Him and Brian Waddell played a lot last summer too. But I'm sure I'll get to see it. It's always weird when tall people swing.
Those are long levers. That's if he's any good at all, it's impressive.
Daniel Jacobson, I saw on the online, just got fitted for some TaylorMade clubs.
Oh my gosh!
So if you want to talk about long levers,
the longest golf clubs in existence. Yeah. But putting him in the Caleb first spot, where it's like, all right, give Trey some room to operate just by being a body out there. I think that Oscar Clough is about as perfect as you can get. I think Trey will really, really enjoy playing next to him, and just having a guy who can take some of that load on the glass. Which Trey is a decent rebounder, but he's not an elite rebounder. And I think they tried to get him to do more with that last year. And I think that he doesn't have to anymore. I think that he can just be himself, focus on scoring, focus on being tough down there, and Clough will kind of clean up a lot of the rest. I'm interested in your thoughts on, does this mean that Jacobson is going to take a back seat? Is it going to be a platoon situation where they play 20 minutes apiece? What are your thoughts on that?
Everything that the coaches have said throughout last season, this season, they never really trusted Jacobson's body to get through like a whole season or to be able to their plan is not for him to play 30 minutes. It wasn't last year and
Sure.
it's not this year. So yeah, platoon, pretty 2020 split. I'll be curious. I don't think there's a world where Clough and Jacobson can play together because I thought Jacobson defensively, like there's no putting him on a floor. I don't. Maybe in a right matchup, but I just don't think that's a thing you can do.
No.
Um so yeah, I think it's going to be a pretty even 2020 split. Um be curious to see how much if they ever do right now with the roster construction. There's really not someone that screams I want to play them at the four a whole bunch. Obviously
Hmm.
Liam Murphy we'll talk about in a second. But I think as much as Trey Kaufman likes playing the five for obvious reasons, I think Pater's always wanted him at the four. There's a reason why he played him next to a big with Zach Edey. It's just now he's going to be able to target fours who can't guard him in the post, who
No.
are probably even worse pick and roll defenders than like you probably just switch it more, but that means he just gets the one on one mismatch more. And it won't be the same with Edie because yes, he's playing off a big guy now, but now he's the number one guy. And I think Clough fits that because he is so big, because he does take up so much space. Andy's a good passer, 20% assist rate. Like,
Yeah.
I think that works a lot. Like, there will be a mismatch every time. And then Jacobson stretches the floor as a big and moves better. So I think it is as good a situation as Trey can have at the four. And then you're just rotating Clough and Jacobson back in, foul trouble, whoever, just like, because Trey's a better offensive rebounder and he's a better kind of go get the ball. And you can do that more at the four than when you have to be. Oscar Clough's ability to just be in the right spot defensively is going to change the entire everything for Purdue because Trey Kaufman Rin love him. Great guy. The players love him. If someone was getting yelled at the last two seasons on the floor, it was probably Trey, and it was probably because he was in the wrong spot on defense. Just what happens.
Yeah, that's fair, and I do think that it's one of those things where you're going to let Matt Painter cook a little bit with his rotations
Let
a
him
little
go.
bit. Where exactly he is going to have an opportunity to say, okay, what do we need at in the front court right now? Do we need more defense? Do we need more rim protection? Do we need Daniel Jacobson out there to maybe stretch the floor a little bit? Do we need rebounding? Do we need passing out of the post? It's whatever you need. One of those guys is going to be able to provide it at a given moment. I think that that's going to be just a lot, quite frankly, a lot of fun for Matt Painter being like, all right, I got a guy for that, you know? And so I think that he's going to have some opportunities to really mold the rotations and mold the substitutions to what best fits that given game. And I think that's hugely valuable, especially when you get into tournament play where things are going to be so much more condensed.
Yeah, I think it's one of those where I think Clough and Jacobson are both good enough that Painter's going to feel fine not overtaxing anyone down there,
Yeah.
which is not a place Painter's been. Like, if you're talking about just like depth on his team, he's not been in that spot in a while. Like, he's had guys he's had to ride. And I think there's a sneaky chance that Oscar Clough, when you watch his tape at South Dakota State, like he scores a ton, obviously, like 20 points a game, 60 some percent at the rim. He's an efficient with both hands in the post. He didn't really move guys. It was a lot of him, like he's not getting moved, obviously, but like it's a
Right.
lot of him, 1-2 dribble, touch hook shot, and he's got really good touch there. The idea that Brandon Brantley is going to get his hands on him And like, I think there's a ton of work that could be done on his post game to improve. And there's no one better in the country at that than Brantley. There's a chance that Clough is just like, there's a chance Purdue could have 4 first team caliber all Big Ten players.
Yeah.
And that's leaving Lawyer off.
Oh,
Like,
Fletcher.
and like, there's definitely a world where Fletcher's like a top 2 all Big Ten team player. Like,
Yeah.
the entire starting lineup of Purdue just might be all Big Ten. They probably should be, except Clough hasn't done it on the stage. It's the only like, but like, if he averages a double double for a 2-loss Purdue team, you're gonna have 5 all Big Ten players.
Yeah. Man. It is one of those things where I like what Matt, and we can talk about it because some of the other guys they brought in this offseason, but it is one of those things where I think Matt Painter realizes get with Braden back, this is a push your chips to the middle of the table.
Yes.
We are going for it. Let's get that banner this year. We might not have a better opportunity for a while because the way this team is set up, the way the scholarships have kind of fallen is you get Braden and Fletcher in their final year. You bring in a guy who's a veteran like Clough, and then you have the next wave coming with Jacobson, with CJ and Jakari, with Omar Mayer, who we're going to talk about here. You have that is the next core of Purdue that's going to lead them to Sweet 16s and hopefully Final Fours at some point. But for this year especially, it's the crossover of present and future. And I think it's a chips in the middle of the table season.
Yeah, I think you're 100% right on it's going to be one of the most fascinating things to talk to Painter about when we first get our hands on him is just like you always try to build a winner, but like you're also building a program, you're building the future. Like how much was this though? Just Braden's coming back. I've got Trey, I've got Fletcher. Like yeah, it's all in. Like we are going to do everything because there's too many guys on this team. Uh like 2 starters are being replaced.
Yeah.
Like Jacobson was a starter to start the season last year.
Right.
He's probably getting moved to the bench. CJ Cox is probably going to start the year on the bench. And like Painter didn't say, I need to fill in gaps. He said, I need to raise the ceiling and get this team better at every position. And internally development with Smith coming back, like you could argue that they are better at the first 9, 10 spots in the rotation this year.
Yeah.
Whew.
I mean,
Which brings us to
go ahead. Yeah.
Which brings us to the Israeli savior, the soon-to-be NBA guard, Omer Mayer. Where the hell did this come from? It happened so quickly. Because you always hear names early in the portal, and then it was like a week later, and like I hear from 2 different people. I'm like, there's this guy. He's a guard, Omer Mayer. He's coming to Portland to play at the Nike Summit. And I turned the tape on, like just turn on. There's plenty of tape because he's been playing professionally for like 3 years in the EuroLeague.
Yeah.
I'm like, what? This guy's going to Kentucky. Like he's going to Duke. He looks like McDonald's All-American. He looks like a potential top 10 pick in the draft. He's 6'4", 200. Steph Curry dribbles, step backs, delays. Like he is unbelievably good. And all I hear about is he loves Purdue. Played on Travion Williams' team, Maccabi Tel Aviv, whatever, in Israel, in the same league as Carson Edwards. Am I crazy, Dylan? Or am I overselling this?
Look, man, I was so happy. So you did not watch the Hoop Summit. I did not watch the Hoop Summit, but then I went and watched the film of the Hoop Summit.
Right.
And I am so happy that I was able to show you the highlights of the Hoop Summit. Getting your live reaction of that was so great because, like, just anyone who thinks that we're overselling this, please go watch the film of him playing against some of the best high school talent in the United States because he was awesome. He
Didn't score a point.
He didn't. He took 3 shots in
Score a
15
point.
minutes, did not score a point. Was just whipping passes all over the court. There's one where he's dribbling to his left. Again, I don't know how to say this except he's Braden Smith, but big. He's dribbling to his left. His face is turned left, and there's a guy in the opposite corner from him. He throws it from the left wing to the opposite corner in the shooting pocket with one hand over his head. It's one of the most impressive passes I've ever seen from a high school player, high school age player, I guess, because he's not a high school player. He's 18, but he's not a high school player. And it is one of those things where I was like, oh, well, that is just that one highlight is like, okay, you can see the vision here. And then you look at the box score, and it's like he had 7 assists in 19 minutes on the floor. Like you talked about, he looks like McDonald's All-American. Jalen Harrelson was a Purdue target for a while, right? He ended up going to Notre Dame. Really, really, really good player. One of the best recruits in Notre Dame history. Omer Mayer outplayed him in that Hoop Summit, but pretty significantly. Jalen Harrelson, I also don't think scored in like 10 minutes. Mayer was the better player out of those two in that game. And so, boy, howdy. It really is. You don't want to put expectations on a guy who has never played college basketball before immediately, but it is one of those things where it's really hard not to get caught up in hyperbole with him when you just turn on the film because it's so spectacular.
Yeah, and you're like, there will be adjustments, style of play, blah, 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 learning a new system, but he's been a professional basketball player for the last 3 years.
Yeah.
He has not been going up against random 3A schools in Indiana. He has been playing against grown men, against a lot of guys that dominated the Big Ten 5 to 10 years ago. Like his body is already like a huge 6'4" guard. Like it you can't undersell how much more prepared he is basketball wise than any random high school guy you're going to bring in.
Yeah.
Because he's been playing at the top level. And I don't know what the plan is NBA wise, because I think he's definitely like that caliber. But I'm assuming the sell was, hey, go start next to Braden and Fletch, be the second playmaker. And next year the keys are yours. And that's where Purdue basketball is now. And this is thanks to Braden Smith more than anyone else. Because like Braden Smith has turned into this, like Jaden Ivey before him. Just like all of a sudden Purdue is a place where you can go and flourish and like become, and like the offense will adapt around. And like those kids are smart. Like they see it. They know basketball better than most of us. They live it. Like they see something that works that can turn them into something, and that matters. And yeah, Omer Mayer is. I did not think. I thought Purdue was going to get an under the radar wing, and I thought it was going to be a nice fit and it'd be cozy and it would do well. Painter always wants more playmaking.
Yeah,
and it's not like a bit. Because like I remember talking to him. I said this on Twitter a couple years ago. I don't remember who they were playing. They were playing some team that just was like 6'10" everywhere. And I'm like, do you consider bringing Mason in at the 3 to play against them? Because like he's pretty much his sophomore, junior him, and he's like, no. You counter size with movement. I'm like, okay. And now Purdue just added a whole lot of movement to its offense.
Yeah, Matt Painter's been watching the Golden State Warriors, and he was like, you know what? We're going to create a death lineup, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
There are some fun rotations.
So I do wonder, and this is something that I've been curious about is, okay, where does this leave CJ Cox? Because you said he's coming off the bench, and that's almost certainly true, but he is a starter caliber player.
Yep.
And I think he will be even better next season when he's gotten in. Is it one of those things? Look, I like Fletcher Lawyer a lot. I think he's a very good basketball player.
Careful.
Is there a world where he ends up as a guy off the bench by the end of the season because CJ Cox is just, he needs to be in the lineup? No. Okay.
CJ didn't really play starter minutes last year anyway.
That's fair. Yeah.
So I don't think his minutes are going to drop off a whole bunch. He'll probably come in for Fletcher to start games now. I would imagine that Braden will get more rest this season,
Okay.
and that it's not going to be a ton, but like it will be 4 to 5 more minutes of guard play. There's not really a three on the bench right now. So it's kind of Jakari's and CJ's to be the backup at the 1, the 2, and the 3,
Okay.
with Jack Benner coming in and seeing what he can do. So I think it's just CJ moves to the bench this year. He's an older guy. Um, so like he's older than Miles Colvin, like CJ
Yeah,
Cox is.
I think so. Yeah.
So like it's one of those where like you have to take a little bit of a step back starting lineup wise, but you're still going to play pretty similar minutes. When you're out there, like you're going to be the defensive stopper. There'll be games where they close with them if they need that out there. I think if you're talking about any difference, there might be A, because I don't think Purdue's going to be behind, and B, like you might just want CJ out there for the defense. I don't know. I don't think Meyer's an elite defender by any stretch of the imagination from what
Mhm.
I've seen, but like so like there's definitely still that Jakari and CJ could be the defensive guys off the bench and you use them as you need them. But I think it's just one of those where like, hey, we've got a chance to do something special. Braden, Fletch, all those guys will be gone next year. It'll be your backcourt like it was going to be then. And it's just like, let's go win a chip. I think it helps when like Braden came back. What are you gonna do, CJ? Complain about being on the bench? Like it's kind of like when Edie came back and like there were sacrifices made. Like Ethan Morton wasn't like starting to fit because he was not playing at all. Like it's like the Purdue stuff, all the I'm sure annoying to people that aren't Purdue fans. Like it's real. Like sacrifice has been honestly, it's been this like class's motto because they sacrificed some minutes early. Trey redshirted, blah blah blah. Like
Yeah.
sacrifice last year was something they talked a whole lot about, and I, you do it. It's a lot easier to do it when you're this clearly capable of winning a national title.
I think like yeah, I think that's right. I think basically you're asking CJ and Jakari to some extent to do the same thing that Trey did 2 years ago, right? Like
Yeah.
Trey could have gone somewhere else after his redshirt freshman year and been probably a starter caliber player as a redshirt sophomore. And Purdue, they would have missed him, but it wouldn't have been the end of the world for Purdue. But they would have cost them the following couple of years. And so Matt Painter was basically like, hey, come back for 1 year, play the 4, play next to Edie, be the secondary post guy, and then the keys in the front court are yours. And I think that's
Yep.
probably a similar pitch to the one he made to CJ and Jakari this offseason was, hey, we have a chance to win a national championship. This is why you came here. That you came here because I'm going to put a program together. CJ, in CJ's case, he came here because it was the only high major offer he had. Um, and so basically,
Also, CJ, like very smart kid, like
yes,
business degree from Purdue matters to him.
yes.
Same way Trey, like school mattered to him. Like
Uh,
Painter
yeah,
says these things, and it's for most places, it's just something coaches say. It's like, yeah, school's important, get your degree. But like he specifically finds guys where it does matter more to them. And a lot of it is because he wants to know like they're anchored into other stuff because Purdue does have a lot to offer. And when you get into special situations like this, if if it's not just all about you playing, it's a lot easier to sacrifice. If it's about winning, it's a lot easier to sacrifice.
yeah. Number one St. Augustine fan, Trey Kaufman Wren.
I don't know what that means.
He's a philosophy major, and they asked him, I think it was Gus Johnson, asked him who his favorite philosopher is, and he said St.
Oh,
Augustine. Yeah, number one
interesting.
St. Augustine fan, Trey Kaufman Wren. And
That's
that's a fair, as someone who knows a tiny bit about philosophy, that is a good pick. I agree with Trey Kaufman Wren on that score. So
Trey is the least annoying philosophy major I've ever met in my life. Take that for what you want.
he is just not he is not in your face about it, but he is. I mean, it's if you were gonna pick one guy on Purdue's team and you talked to all of them and said, okay, which one's the philosophy major? It's so obvious that it's Trey. Just the so thoughtful, and like we've talked about this before, but just when you ask him a question, he'll pause for like 3 or 4 seconds,
Mhm.
not because he doesn't know the answer, but because he's thinking of the best way to phrase it.
Right.
I've always respected that about him. But as you said, yes, it is one of those things where it is easier to keep guys around in the portal era if they're about more than basketball. And you want them to be about basketball, right? You can't
Right.
put together a championship caliber team without being about basketball because it's just such a grind and it's going to wear you down if you don't love the game.
Yeah, I don't think Braden Smith cares about anything else but basketball.
Which, in Braden's case, fair enough. Um, but
That's his thing.
yes, that's how you go from being listed at 6 foot to being one of the best players in college basketball. So kudos to Braden for riding that all the way out. But by the way, did you see the crowd that he got for his camp over the weekend?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, look at some of the photos. There must have been thousands of kids at this thing.
Yeah.
He's
Good racket
given
if you can get it.
he's given a demonstration of some drill with the guy who's running the camp. It's like Braden Smith's camp, but there's like another guy out there helping him run it. And these kids are just sitting there watching him with like this enraptured look on their faces, like, "Oh my God, it's Braden Smith!" And he's just one guy, and it's this rows and rows and rows of kids there to watch him play. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, which is why it's a sports story. Just the fact he came back is like it would have been so hollow if any other path was taken. Like,
yeah,
that stuff matters. Like the Zach Edey legacy of like that senior season and all the nights after games where he just hung out with the fans and Mackey, like that stuff's what's going to stick around for like 15, 20 years, 30 years when you're talking back. Okay, Purdue wasn't done with Omer Mayer. They also added shortly after a North Florida stretch four, Liam Murphy, 6'7", 200 pounds. I'll tell you what, Dylan, if there was one consistent offensive complaint last season, what do you think it was for Purdue?
I mean, for me, it was well. Actually, go ahead and you expound to the people because I'm curious as to where you go with this.
It was Cam Heide just shoot the ball, right? Like be open, shoot. The one like consistently.
During the game against Houston, I was sitting close enough to hear most of what Matt Painter was saying. And there was one time where it wasn't Cam, I believe it was Miles, who had an open three in the corner for a split second, and then Houston closed out and Miles didn't shoot it. And Painter yells at Miles, "Miles, shoot the ball." And then he turns around to the bench and says, "You guys got to shoot the ball now." And it was a little bit more colorful than that, by the way. But yes, that was a complaint. It was like, hey, we have all this playmaking to create you guys open shots. If you don't take the open shots when you have them, what's the point of all the playmaking? So yeah.
Matt Painter is never going to yell at Liam Murphy to shoot the ball. Liam Murphy did not start last year. Played just over 20 minutes a game, I believe. Came off the bench. He started twice. One game of 30 minutes. You want to guess what his lowest output of 3-point shots were in a game?
Lowest. Now that's an interesting question.
Lowest amount of attempts.
I'd say 3 or 4.
On a bench player. Yes, 3.
3. Okay.
He shot 4 or less, I believe, 3 times all season.
I think it was 78% of his shots were from 3.
A lot of them. Yeah, he took 68 twos and he took 231 threes. 231 threes while playing 60% of the minutes available. At 40.416%, 107th best mark in the country. Against Tier A opponents at Ken Palm, he shot 45%. In 4 games against Tier A opponents, which I really do like the stat for shooters because it tells you how they can get their shots off against good. In 4 games, 15 of 33. The dude will shoot. And he can shoot off the move, and he can shoot off the catch, and he can shoot off spot ups. And if you are, once again, in a lab designing what kind of stretch big do I want? Stretch weak, like he might play some 3 too. But like just a guy who's going to catch passes from Braden Smith and Omer Mayer. That's what you want. Chuck it. All he does, chuck it. Chuck, 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 chuck. Um, just like it's not going to turn many like eyeballs right now because like he played at North Florida. I guarantee you 99% of people have no idea who Liam Murphy is. But just like once again, Matt Pater understands how to put a roster together.
Yeah. I think it's interesting that so they needed obviously someone to replace the minutes that Colvin and Heidi gave them. And obviously CJ and Jakari will take some of that, but they needed someone who was willing to come off the bench. And Liam Murphy is willing to come off the bench because he was coming off the bench at North Florida. And I think that that is something that Matt Painter's talked about in the past is it's easy to get into a rhythm when you're playing 30 minutes a game. And this was something that was a problem with Brandon Newman a couple of years ago was like he was a really good player.
Issues.
There were some, but one of them was that he was a starter as a freshman and that he wasn't a starter as a sophomore. He had a real trouble adjusting to, okay, I'm in the game. Can I get my shot off and make it a good shot while I'm cold off the bench? And that is a skill that not a lot of people have because if you're that good of a shooter, generally you're starting, right? And so Liam Murphy was coming off the bench in North Florida. And so he knows how to do that, which is you get in the game, you get warm as quickly as you can, and you get up shots without feeling like you're hesitant because you've been cold on the bench for 15 minutes. And I think that if you're going to replace Colvin and Heidi with somebody, that is the guy to replace them with. Is someone who has that experience. I think that that was a really shrewd pickup by Painter.
Against Nebraska, North Florida played. Liam Murphy played 19 minutes. He took 10 3-point shots. My dream is Liam Murphy to have a 1-to-2 ratio of 3-point shots per minute.
That's so good. I'm sorry, that's so good.
3 of 10, so like he wasn't terrible, like not inefficient, not great, but like 3 of 10 in 19 minutes.
That's so funny.
I love that. I love that type of player. I think it was an interesting because I thought they would get a defensive wing. I think if you look at everything they added, if there was one spot, defensive wing like a Bamba type at Oregon, which obviously that's the ideal of ideal.
Sure.
But if you want to pretend to even keep Jakari Harris and CJ Cox happy and give Jack Benner a chance to show off, you can't add a for sure wing. Do you think that's right? Do you think Jakari and CJ were enough to like be like we're good there? Like we're solid on our starting five and we're going to get enough from our bench guys. Do you think Jakari and CJ are good enough? Playing a little they played as a 3 like a lot last season. So I don't even think it's really particularly out of position.
I think it's fine because here's the thing to me is that Jakari and CJ. First of all, we know that Purdue is a really good development program. They've done a really good job of having guys improve over the course of their careers. But Jakari and CJ to me had all the hallmarks of freshmen who are going to make a big leap between freshman and sophomore year because they were guys who knew the game, but they were just getting used to the speed of it. I think a little bit, and I think that having an off season in the program, having a season under their belt, they are the type of players that when you look at it, you're going to say, okay, the experience has helped them. Those guys especially because they're smart players. And so now you put the experience underneath that where it's like, okay, I don't really have to think this guy's going to be here. And I know he's going to be here because I played in the Big Ten before. And I do think that is going to be, they to me are breakout candidates. And obviously they won't be super breakouts because they're not going to be starters. Probably they're not going to play big minutes, but for what they do, I think you could see kind of a breakout in terms of efficiency, in terms of how comfortable they look. And I do think that they should probably be able to take most of those minutes would be my guess.
I don't even know how you rank this, but like all-time off-season then for Painter?
It's up like the important piece is he said he was going to go in the portal. He did go in the portal to get some guys. He knew he was going to have to. He did it without any drama. He did it while not sacrificing the future of the program, and he did it while maintaining the core identity of what that team was going to be. Right? This was not a shock to the system. We're gonna play a completely different style. They fit what they want to do.
And depending on how long Meyer is around, he might have just cemented the future.
Right.
Like
yeah. It's impressive what they've been able to do in basically just a few weeks too, right? Like Murphy was last week. It was less than a month after the end of the season, right?
Yep.
So they're basically 3.5 weeks, and like what they were able to do with Oscar Clough, where they lost to Houston, they had that weekend free. Clough comes to West Lafayette that weekend, and he's signed by Tuesday or Wednesday. That's really impressive stuff from for a guy who was going to be really coveted in the portal,
right,
to just have him locked down in that way. I thought was, especially when apparently he was also considering Iowa State, which is a very good team, which could absolutely have used him, to kind of salt that away so early. Really, really impressive work. And it shows that it shows that Painter he's not ideologically opposed to portal guys. It's just they didn't really need them because they were able to keep so many guys around. And now that they have a couple of guys left, and he's like, all right, how can I make sure that I don't lose the soul of the program while also making sure that we're as good as we can be? I think he accomplished those. If those are the dual goals, I think he accomplished both of them this offseason.
Yep. And like similar story with Omer Meyer. He's in Portland for the summit, then he's in West Lafayette a few days later. And barely before he touches back home, he's committed to Purdue. And it's just because Meyer could have been a circus. There wouldn't be a school that didn't want him.
Duke wanted him. Auburn wanted him. They were pursuing him. And again, Painter must just be really good on these visits. When he gets someone,
you've talked to Matt Painter.
Yes, it is one of those things where he gets you to West Lafayette. He shows you Mackey. He's really, really good at being that closer, and he's a somewhat unassuming guy. His public persona is being a somewhat unassuming guy, but he wins some recruiting battles that he probably shouldn't over the years, and he's done a really good job at
it. I guess the final Purdue question is is this team gonna win the title?
Here is the better question: are they better positioned to win the title than the team 2 years ago? I think they are. I think they are. I think there were clear question marks about that team that this one on paper doesn't have. And so there is no perfect college basketball team. I think we know that. There are going to be weaknesses that reveal themselves with this group, and we'll see what happens with that.
But I don't think there's a bunch.
I don't think there are, and there is not an obvious exhaust port in the Death Star thing like Purdue's lack of perimeter athleticism was 2 years ago that was exposed by UConn in the championship game. So I am interested in seeing where that comes down, where it's like, all right, what is this thing that is really going to make them that is going to need to be fixed as the season goes on? Because I don't see it right now.
It's probably that. It's probably elite wing size athleticism.
Yeah.
Because they lost 2 6'7" guys and didn't replace them with 6'7" guys.
That's fair.
But is it going to matter? I don't think so.
Yeah. So it's so hard to predict because the tournament is so matchup dependent, whether a team is going to win the title before the season. But I think they are in a better position to win the title than the team that went to the national championship game, which is the highest praise I can give them.
How much of that is a little bit colored by just how well Braden Smith carved up Houston, who is the archetype of the team that should, in theory, give Purdue problems? If he could do that with that roster, what this team could be capable of.
Yeah. I'm sorry. It's one of the most impressive performances I've ever seen in college basketball. I think we need to drive this home. Purdue had 11 field goals in the second half, and Braden Smith assisted on all 11 of those field goals against the number one defense in the country. He had one turnover in the second half? 11 assists to 1 turnover against the number one defense in the
I
country while
believe
leading
that's
their
right.
team back
Yeah,
from 10 down.
I believe that is correct.
It's so like going back and watching that, it's so impressive. And getting that guy back for another year and adding a scoring big and adding a playmaking guard next to him on top of everything else that was coming back is just it's really intriguing to me.
Yeah, yeah. Most I mean, every breaking point Purdue had last year has been secured and locked down. Trey gets into foul trouble, not a death sentence anymore. Braden gets into foul trouble or whatever, not necessarily a death sentence because you have Mayer there. Big guys, I mean, Raleigh Burgess is just sitting there on the bench. He's going to be the most overqualified third center in the country. He had some legit moments last year where I thought he was pretty good. It's a crazy roster. Get a one or two surprises like Jakari CJ takes a leap. Jack Benner looks really good, and it's going to be a hard rotation to dwindle down.
Yeah, I think that is a thing that was similar to the team 2 years ago. Is that they entered the season with 10 or 11 guys that you thought could really contribute to a championship level team, and it was really that. Remember that first month of the season of that year was like very much okay. How are we going to dwindle this? How are we going to get some of these guys out? It was basically just all right, Ethan Morton, you're going to have to be a towel waiver, and that you're going to have to be okay with that. And someone is going to have to be that guy this year. Maybe it's Raleigh Burgess, maybe it's one of CJ or Jakari, maybe Jakari, but someone is probably going to have to be a towel waiver this year. And we'll see who that is. But that is going to be again the first month of the season is going to be fascinating because you're not only trying to to incorporate Omer Mayer into the offense because I think they're going to want him to be a big part of this right away. But then you're also going to trying to figure out okay, who are the 8 or 9 guys we're really going to rely on for the long haul here. I think that is going to be what we're looking at toward the beginning of the season.
Yeah, I'm excited what this offense is going to be able to add a second dynamic pick and roll player and Clough, who is an actual big boy who's going to set screens. Trey was good on the short roll. He didn't set great screens.
And that was something they
He
missed
was the
from
danger.
Zach.
Yes.
Zach was a great elite screen setter. And yeah, Trey, again, as you said, Trey was fine. He wasn't Zach. And so Clough is a much closer to an elite screen setter.
Off ball, on ball. The ball should whip around. One sneaky thing, which I think is my last point. Oscar Mayer has a 20% assist rate as a big man. Oscar Mayer is an elite passer. Everyone on the floor for Purdue is good to elite passing, and they're all dangerous. I think it's going to be historically fun on the offensive end.
Yeah.
I think they're going to be able to do stuff and whip the ball around, and they might be the slowest team in the country, and they might score 1.4 points a possession. Like they're going to run a lot of half court because they're going to be unbelievable in the half court.
Yeah.
But like this is going to be one of the most efficient offenses of all time if things go okay.
Like, and it's funny because one of the least efficient things they did last season is gone, which is trying to throw half court lobs to Miles Colvin because Braden always thought he always thought that he could get it there, and like Miles Colvin was so athletic that it always made it tempting. And now there's not really that guy to really tempt you to do that. So just slow it down, pull it out, set a screen.
Good call. Yeah, it's either a Fletcher Lawyer 3 in transition or set it up. All right, is there anything we missed on Purdue, Dylan?
The only thing
we're an hour and a half into this.
The only thing I can say to tie this all together as Indiana and Purdue is that both teams have a guy from North Florida. So Purdue got Liam Murphy. You got Josiah Miles, their shooting guard, to come off the bench. So that'll be a fun storyline going into that game next year. We're looking forward to the North Florida Bowl when IU and Purdue
the battle of the Osprey.
That's right.
The Osprey.
North Florida had a guy go to Purdue and a guy go to IU, both of whom I think are very good players, and somehow went 15 and 17 last year. Color me confused by that one.
Basketball's a weird sport.
It is a weird sport.
Basketball's a weird sport. All right, Dylan, go enjoy the rest of your Easter. We will talk with everyone later, most likely with more IU news. I think we can both say Purdue's probably pretty locked up when it comes to roster at this point. Dylan, final little where can everyone check out your stuff over at the Journal Gazette?
Yeah, we are journalgazette.net online, and I am at Dylan Sinn on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it. And so I post a lot of my stuff there. So check it out there. And I'm all over the place. So I will be covering a lot of stuff over the next couple of months here, even before basketball season.
Yep, it's an off season for me, never for Dylan. So enjoy. We'll be back with you next week, folks.